There's low value and high value tasks, and the two things are not created equal. One's commodity, the other isn't. So if you're going to book a ticket to go from A and B, you're going to go to Expedia, and that's going to be $600 because you don't need an agent to help you with that anymore. It's relatively easy. But if you're going on a safari and it's going to cost you $20,000, you're sitting down with a human being who's building you an itinerary, and it's going to be very hard for robots to replace that because trust is so important in that transaction because it's very low frequency, super high value. It doesn't get lower frequency and higher value than real estate. And most
as long
people,
as we're providing high value.
Correct, and the risk to that is that 90+% of agents frankly do not because they're more fee generating
transactional
for brokerages than they are in industry in a way that's creating value for clients, but that's besides the point. When you look at even the book industry, Amazon didn't put Chronicle books out of business, it put Barnes & Noble out of business. And Barnes & Noble deserved to go out of business because it didn't create value. It put the local retailers out of business and created a way where you could buy mass market books but not get specialty anymore. And Amazon said, we'll be the budget provider for books. And then Chronicle has now carved out a multi-billion-dollar business selling specialty. That's the exact thing that you should expect in real estate. And when you talk about iBuyer, whatever that percentage may be, you might as well call it iMortgage because that's really the innovation. It's a capital innovation, not a technology one. So 1.5 trillion are spent on 5.5 million home sales a year, purchases. That's a lot of capital for the private markets to deploy into capturing share in real estate. If you look at Sacramento, for example, in the last 6 months where Open Doors recently entered aggressively, they spent $50 million there in the last 6 months. They bought 106 homes out of 20,000 purchases. That's not 60%, that's a far cry from it. And for them to capture 60%, it would require them to deploy billions of dollars, $7 billion to be exact. Where do you generate that? So if Bank of America and Citi and HSBC aren't worried about iBuyer, I don't think agents necessarily should be as well, because the iBuyers are still utilizing agents for distribution. Those two things are so different. Financing the purchase of the home to make it fast versus actually trading, selling, and servicing the needs of that client, completely separate experiences and things and frankly initiatives that technology can enable in two different ways, but they're not the same.
Yeah.
And I'll just jump in and say that I think iBuying, the trend to pay attention to in iBuying is that it's pointing out the pain points in the transaction. As Brad sort of mentioned, that I want to be able to come in and look at a house. I think those are things that the industry can look at and say, how can I simplify the transaction? How can I make things easier for the consumer? And if you're paying attention to those pain points that perhaps iBuying points out, that's a way to be successful or to react to the iBuying phenomenon.
Consumers don't prefer budget by default. That's what they resign and resolve to do if they feel like they can't get a premium service in the first place. Open Door had 400 one-star reviews on Yelp before they convinced Yelp to pull that down. So it wasn't as if being able to go into that open house at 9 p.m. was creating a 5-star experience. That isn't necessarily the thing that makes the difference. The thing that makes the difference is having someone who's a true fiduciary and principal in the transaction and instills confidence in you, gets you the best results. Now, making that person do better, enabling them to be faster, deploying capital through them for instant purchase, for example, those, in my opinion, are really interesting innovations. It's less so trying to take that high-value service provider out of the equation. And frankly, I think the focus is misplaced. It's more the brokerages who are under pressure to be commodified, not the agents themselves.
Sure.
Because it's the brokerages that provide a commodity service and frankly extract way too much value from the transaction relative to the value they create in the first place.
Sure.
And I think it's important for brokerages to start recognizing that if they truly want to innovate, because just slapping AI or blockchain on your marketing isn't going to be the thing that does it.
Right, right.